Welcome everyone to today, and I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome an extraordinary guest whose journey is as inspiring as it is empowering. Miriam Castilla is an ex-engineer and finance professional who traded the corporate fast track for a life dedicated to helping entrepreneurs unlock true freedom in their business. As a business mentor, course creator, and founder of the Freedom and Ease Business Academy, Miriam has helped countless online coaches and service providers blend mindset mastery with practical strategies to align with their core values and claim both financial and time freedom. Her signature magnetic money code isn't just about hitting revenue goals. It's about creating a life of choice, retiring partners, paying off mortgages, and reigniting the passion for business. She's also the best-selling author of Today's Woman, Life Balance Secrets, and the creator of the 5-Minute Magnetic Money Management System. In today's episode, we're going to dive into how hospitality professionals and others, as well as frontline and leaders across industries, can create more ease, overcome burnout, and master their money habits to build a business and a life they love. Welcome, Miriam, to the show. My goodness, I think we all need to take that big breath when it comes to money and business and work and, yes, and the pressures that we have on our lives.
Absolutely. And, especially when we're in our own business, it just goes next level, doesn't it? Life is busy and crazy with many demands. And then we decide to go into business as well, just because we like a challenge.
But why not? And you're right. Going into business is absolutely crazy, but it's a wonderful thing. And I'm now into my 31st year of business. And, last year with the celebrations of 30, people went, wow, 30 years. And I truly, love every day that I've had in it. There's not one moment, although, COVID was a bit rough right on that first day. I think like for everybody in the whole wide world, it was just, I love what I do because of the people that I work with. But, it's great that you love what you do, but you've also got to make money from it. And I think this is where it's really key, Miriam, and why I'm going to really enjoy our conversation today is working is one thing, but we do need money to survive because we're going to live a very long time.
Yeah, money is important, and avoiding burnout is also important. We often go into business because we love that thing.
Yes.
And then the actual realities of running a business can take their toll if we're not prepared for them. And then suddenly we're not loving the business so much anymore, right?
Yes.
So we want to avoid that.
Definitely. And the same is in leadership roles. You take on these new roles in an organization and you've got all these plans, and then sometimes they may or may not be derailed either because of the organization or perhaps the people that you're working with. So let's hear a little bit more about your journey, Miriam, going from engineering and finance to business mentorship. That's really inspiring because you come with a lot of insights and knowledge. But what pivotal moment led you to focus on helping entrepreneurs, particularly coaches and service providers, being able to create that freedom and ease in their business?
Yeah, it was really my own journey and especially my own struggles that led me there. So initially I was in that engineering corporate career, moved into corporate development, and quickly realized that it really wasn't my happy place. And then fast forward a little bit, I'd had a couple of kids. I had actually left my career and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I had focused on just helping my husband at the time build his business. And then our marriage ended and I was a little bit screwed, to be honest. And, I had abandoned my career. I hadn't worked out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I had 2 kids under the age of 5. And I knew that if nothing else, I wanted to be available for them. I wanted to, whatever I created next needed to work around them. So a 9-to-5 job wasn't really part of that. And it honestly wasn't calling me anyway. So that's what led me to create then a finance business, which in the beginning I knew nothing about finance, but I'm a quick study. And that became a really beautiful, successful business. And it was wonderful because it gave me the freedom, it gave me the, financial stability, and it allowed me to help others build their financial stability. But the problem that I quickly recognized across the board was it actually didn't matter what level of income people were at, they all carried this, what I call silent money shame, because they were all just at some level kind of winging it. Even accountants with, 50-person teams would be ashamed that their personal finances were a mess. And so people had all of these fears and, all of this unspoken stuff around money. And often it was the people actually on lower incomes that had better net asset bases and had different habits. So I realized that, more money doesn't change your money habits, and a bigger income doesn't necessarily change how you feel about money. And so that was really interesting. And so once my finance business got established, I started really, leaning into this passion I had for personal growth and development. Which is what got me through, the divorce, the being broke single mum, rebuilding my life kind of thing. And I wanted to pay it forward. And I kind of started leaning into that space and coaching people. And my passion was to help women empower themselves, step out of that career, be masters of their destiny, and help them with the mindset and working around their kids and so on. And particularly the mindset around money and working hard, that whole notion of working hard that we're trained with. And I quickly realized that you really needed to address the underlying programming. And that's when I went and studied hypnotherapy as well and kind of brought it all in together. So here I am, this, really left-brained engineer, finance person who went, yep, we're going to just have to come out of the closet on this woo-woo stuff and embrace that as well. And it's bringing the two together really where the magic happens. So that's what I'm incredibly passionate about.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna love this episode and hearing more about this. And when we're talking about, people that are in a lower income have perhaps manage their money better, I'm always reminded of that saying, as a small child, and I know I say it now to my children, money burns a hole in your pocket. And I know, at different times in your life, in my life, I've thought, you've got some money. It's like, and I have this amazing business coach, Tina Tower, and she always has this joke with me. Every time you get money, Michelle, you buy cushions. So she actually stopped. She did not allow me to buy cushions for 12 months. And it was a bit of an inside joke because I spent a lot more money than just on cushions, mind you. But it was true. It was like, I've got some money and it just burned a hole in my pocket. And then you realize that, particularly in business, but even in work life, things go up and down, don't they? And so it is putting that money aside. But money levels is different for everybody, isn't it? There's some people that want to have a lot and they like to save. And then there's others that just need enough to get by and really having an enjoyable life. So we're all very, very different. And so I'm sure we're going to talk about, what those drivers are and how do we find the right path for ourselves. So you emphasize blending mindset mastery with practical strategies. And as you said, I think that's really cool, that left-hand side of the brain and right-hand side of the brain, bringing engineering, I thought, this is going to be a real geek. But there you are, into this woo-woo space. I think it's really cool. For hospitality managers and business owners facing constant external pressures, how can they begin shifting their mindset to align with their core values? Because that's what's really key to me, is our values, while still driving financial success.
Okay, well, core values are a really interesting thing. So, if I sit people down and say, what are your values? Most people will go straight into their left brain and rattle off some things that they think are important to them, some things that maybe they feel they should list because otherwise it makes them a bad, parent, partner, human being, whatnot. So when I talk core values, I'm talking those unconscious things that light us up that sometimes we're not even aware of. It might be something as simple as feeling connected to nature or feeling supported by life, including the people around us, or it might be a deep sense of inner peace, which is my top value. It's just the sense of inner peace. And so when you approach it like that, it actually kind of takes you out of, trying to micromanage and maneuver things into really what feels good, like what lights me up. And hospitality is just one of those industries that you don't go into unless you have a passion for it, because it's not likely to be an easy road. It's competitive, it's long hours, it's, there's a lot of pressure. And so it's about actually tapping into what is it that truly lights me up at the deepest of level, that gives me that internal fuel where it's like, yeah, I've done a 12, 14-hour day, but I'm jazzed and I'm loving life, versus I've done a 12-hour day and I'm exhausted and I hate my life and, please can I just curl up in a ball and hide?
Yes.
So when you tap into those things and you understand them, then you can actively look at infusing it into your work life. So whether that's the team you're leading and the way you lead them and the energy you bring to that. For example, I have a property developer I work with. I've been working with her for a long time. And one of her highest values is a sense of fun and connection. So, she brings that to her joint venture partners, the vendors that she purchases property from, her team. And, it's not really something you would think is high on the priority list for someone who's in property development. But she's kind of the anti-property developer. And by tapping into what lights her up and infusing that into her business, it kind of, takes on this amazing life of its own. It ends up creating this self-perpetuating momentum. And that's infectious. And you can't manufacture that and you can't buy that. So understanding core values and then figuring out how to make sure that you keep filling your cup by tapping into them is just a beautiful life hack.
Yeah, it is. And do you think that sometimes people feel that they're selfish if they're filling their own cup first? Do you ever get that pushback going, oh?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I work with a lot of women and I work with a lot of women who are coaches and service providers. So they're all about giving, and I find that even the people I know who are in the hospitality industry, they want to feed people and give them pleasure and, provide beautiful experiences. So it's very much about being of service. And so that comes with that often comes all this programming or belief system around it's not okay for me to take care of myself. So it's really important that we look at that mindset stuff, because if your cup's empty, how can you possibly give to anyone? If you're abundant, if you're making great money, you can pay your staff, you can provide a more special service, you can provide great quality ingredients, you can really set up your whole system to work well. You're not constantly scrounging and you can show up as your best. So really you owe it to your customers, your team, all of those around you to have your cup as full as possible in every possible way.
Yeah, you're so right. And you owe it to yourself, don't you? We work hard and we only have one life and you've got to be connected to that. Yeah.
And it's that, you owe it to yourself, that feeling worthy and deserving. That's a huge part around money mindset, because money mindset's not really about money. It's about our relationship with ourselves and what we feel we deserve and what we feel is okay and we're comfortable with holding on to. So, you're talking about money burning a hole in the pocket. That's a classic. I talk about money habit archetypes, and that's a classic spender pattern. It doesn't matter how many zeros there are, because you could get a private jet or an island. And I had one of my students used to live in Dubai. And she said, there's a store downstairs in our apartment. They sell 24 karat gold iPad cases. So it's, there's no limit.
There is no limit.
Bigger cushions, some prettier things.
It is so true. So yes, now I've revealed to you and to my listeners what my archetype is. But anyway, we'll keep moving on. So your concept of the money habit archetypes, and it's a perfect segue into this, is really fascinating because, as she said, we're all different. So can you explain, a little bit more what these archetypes actually are and how understanding them can help business leaders in the hospitality, but all industries, master their financial habits? Because sometimes, we have this tag and, we've done a quiz and, you're this certain archetype, you're this certain type of personality. But what does it actually mean to have this money archetype? archetype? How does it make a difference to us?
Yeah. And so so it's important to note that these archetypes I talk about, they're your money habit archetypes. Like, what's your habit pattern around money that you tend to default back into? And usually, even if you look at what did you do with pocket money as a kid, it'll be the same pattern. Yeah, see? Like, how many lollies can I buy? And so that's the spender pattern, right? Money in, money out, happy days. The accumulator archetype is the one that hoards them. They'll go, I'll buy one lolly, but I'll save the rest of my money. And then there's the overextender archetype. They'll be like, how many lollies can I buy? And then they'll borrow or steal from their sibling and buy some extras, right? So it's really only those three things, And so my use, the way I use them in how I teach people to understand themselves better, because that's the journey, is to look at that and go, okay, where is that coming from? Like, what is the belief system that's actually driving it? So a lot of the people I work with, they're the accumulator archetype, which means they're always squirreling nuts away for the winter. But the problem for many of them, most of them, is that they never feel safe and it's never enough. So I always remember in Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, he talked about one of his clients who was a billionaire whose net worth would fluctuate by hundreds of millions of dollars during the course of the week, who would argue with his wife about her buying the expensive toilet paper.
Yeah.
Right?
Odd, isn't it? Yeah.
That's not living in abundance. That's not a nice place to be. So what if you hit 7 figures, if you still feel broke and you still get upset that your wife bought the expensive toilet paper? Nothing's really changed. It's just the zeros have changed. And so I'm about helping people understand those patterns and come to a healthy place in their relationship with money. So you can totally be a spender archetype if it's coming from a happy place of knowing there's always plenty more coming in. I don't have to worry. Money and I are in this beautiful relationship. I know my business has my back. I know money has my back. I'm safe, right? That's a great place to come from and still enact that spender pattern. If it's a spender pattern, though, that's more based around it's not safe to hold money, or it's sorry, Michelle, you're looking uncomfortable here.
Oh, no, I just think my father always used to that, money will always come, and you've got to work hard for it. You've got to work
That's
hard.
your program. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
So that's your belief. That's your program. That's your experience. And this is what happens. Like, that's what you were programmed with. You're totally up for it. You're like, yay, I'm running with that story. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so that's great. And, so you can totally be a spender and still be accumulating a great net worth and setting up financial stability. And it's interesting, in fact, because I work with so many accumulators, they'll often classify themselves as spenders because they don't think they deserve to be called an accumulator yet, because they're still buying the pretty cushions. I'm like, yeah, but have you paid off the house? Yeah. Have you got a great investment portfolio? Yeah. Is your business doing well? Are you paying your stuff? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
It's okay. You deserve the accumulator tag.
Yes.
It's really interesting.
It is, my gosh. How do you broach the subject though? When you're working with your clients and you've got, because there you go. I think I was looking serious because I was thinking intently. What happens when you say to somebody, well, this is what you are, you're the spender or the accumulator, and they just don't want to believe it, or they just go, well, what does that mean?
Well, look, at the end of the day, it's not so much about wearing the badge, and it can shift over time, but it's actually about opening up a conversation and becoming curious about what are my habit patterns and what's driving them? Like, where's that coming from? And is that a healthy thing? Is that serving me, or is that not serving me? Is that keeping me stuck in overworking from a place of fear that there's not going to be enough, or that it could all end tomorrow? And how can I change that? So, yeah, I can accumulate wealth. That's a good thing, but I can be doing it from a place of feeling safe and secure and having, a trust and a faith in my financial abundance. So it's really just about opening up that conversation and getting people to examine what are the stories that I'm telling myself that I've bought into, and are they serving me? And if they're not, how can we start to shift them?
Yes. And then that's where that mindset piece comes in, doesn't it, Miriam? And working with you is one, how do we shift them? Because, as you know, as I've just stated, it's something I've heard ever since I was a little baby, and
Yes.
all those. And my father's passed away many, many years ago. And I still hear that, I go, oh, yes, it'll come, it'll be fine. Keep going. Just
That's
order it.
Wonderful. I think your father did you a wonderful service. Yeah, I think he did a great thing, but programming you with that belief. And so it's like, do I even want to change it? Do I even want to change it? The only time we need to change things is if we decide they're not serving us. So if somebody decided that, no, I do have this accumulator drive and I'm always driven by fear and it never feels like enough, and they suddenly realize that more money won't change my money pattern.
Yes.
Then you can stop chasing the money, because more than likely there's probably enough already. It's just this, if we believe it may not be enough, then we don't see it as enough. And so then we can start looking at changing the story. And so this is where, once again, I reach for the hypnosis toolkit, because I'm lazy and impatient. And one of the things I have done over the years is I don't really work much one-on-one with people anymore. I create tools they can use themselves. So little processes, little tools. There might be self-hypnosis audios with, a process that they need to take themselves through, because really at the end of the day, I love teaching a man to fish. And your unconscious is your tool. And you've got access to it 24/7. So if I come along as your hypnotherapist and, I'm just the tour guide and I lead you on a journey. So I'm very interested in helping people understand how to work with their unconscious patterns and how to start shifting them. And becoming aware is the first step, because the moment you're consciously aware of an unconscious pattern, by definition, it's no longer unconscious, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. There's a lot more going on than what we think about going on in our head when it comes to money, isn't it? It's not just about, well, there it is. It's those beliefs that we've had. And then perhaps as our lives go on, it's what are those drivers, having families. So it can't be just spend. It's got to be thinking about, there's a lot there. Thank you, Miriam. The hospitality industry often deals with burnout due to long hours and high pressure environments. What advice would you give to hospitality professionals looking to create more ease and freedom in their roles without compromising their career ambitions?
So it can feel like a bit of a, situation that you're stuck in, when it's like, well, this is just the industry I'm in. This is what it's going to take. So I think that's when it's extra important to understand those core values and those things that fill your cup, and to really put self-care first. So when I work with my clients tend to be mainly online business owners, but again, that can become this little prison of overwork that people build for themselves. They leave the 9-to-5 job, the 40-hour work week, to work 80 hours a week and never take time off, right? And even on holidays, it's like the laptop's the first thing they pack. So it's about actually setting up the parameters to make sure that before you even get started, you've taken care of yourself, whatever that looks like. It can be a 5-minute practice at the start of the day. If you don't have, I spend the first hour of my day doing yoga stretches, meditating, having my morning cup of coffee, doing a little brain dump. Not everyone can do that. Some people have children that wake them up at the crack of dawn. But even just mindfully looking at what are the things that are draining my energy outside of when I have to be at work and really show up, that's really important, to set those boundaries and to recognize, actually, it drains my energy if I check my emails at night or if I'm on social media at night. So I'm going to just put some boundaries in place, maybe get one of those apps that locks me out. Laying in bed at night maybe and doing a little brain dump of the things you're ready to leave behind that day. So having all these little mindset tools, they don't have to be time consuming. They don't have to be complicated. It's actually about just intentionally like dumping the garbage and filling the tank. even if it's just in little micro moments.
And you're right. You can, to me, boundaries are so key. And it's about setting them, keeping them, but also them communicating them, aren't they, Miriam? Because people can't read our minds. And it is okay to say no to things if that's what your boundary is, that you've promised that you're going to give yourself that time, that afternoon or that evening or that Saturday morning, whatever it might be, to something that you're really going to enjoy that doesn't have to involve spending money. It could be just sitting down, as you said, writing in a journal or watching an old classic movie or just something. But we need to have those boundaries because we can't be on all the time. We can't.
No, yeah. And look, the social pressures on top of the work pressures can really become what the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yes.
And I think it's a really good practice to just, your default answer is no.
Yes.
And, or you get used to saying, let me get back to you on that. So that you kind of give yourself a little bit of a pattern interrupt and a little bit of breathing space to think, rather than defaulting straight away to that people pleasing, saying yes because they've asked you. So a good example was my daughter, who's so much wiser than me, so I've done well. She moved interstate and then she came back home for a wedding, but it was just a work colleague, not even a close friend. And she said, Mum, I'm not sure that I can just say yes to these kinds of invitations because it gets expensive and it's disruptive to travel interstate just for a wedding of an ex-work colleague. And I said, darling, you know what? She probably just invited you to be polite, to let you know that she would love you to be there, but not actually expecting you to say yes. And my daughter went, oh, yeah, you're right. So, to kind of sit back and not instantly feel that impetus to people please and say yes, and get those little hacks in place where we can just create a little bit of a pattern interrupt, gives ourselves a thinking pause and go, I'll get back to you on that. I'll check. I'll get back to you on that.
And it can be, and you don't have to feel that you're offending anybody then. You're just going to just check in. Yeah, which is fantastic. So your magnetic money code and 5-minute money management system sound like the game changers. So, I've read your bio, I've had a quick look at the website. And I think you said, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. So how can leaders in a fast-paced industries integrate simple financial management systems into their daily routine to improve profitability and reduce stress? Because that's the thing, you can make these profits, but your stress levels are getting higher and higher. So share us a little bit more about what these little things that you've got in your back pocket that you'd like to share with us, Miriam.
Okay, so in terms of money management, I actually keep it really, really simple. A lot of the people I work with own very small businesses, and the lines get blurred between the business's money and their money. And sometimes they forget that, hey, this business is supposed to pay me, not just everybody else. So it's actually just about really separating and being really clear. I talk about having money buckets. So, you've got your business operating bucket, you've got your tax bucket, and then you've got your personal buckets. You've got your fun money bucket, which to me is crucial, because the way I approach money management is that it's got to be supportive of an abundance mindset. It's not about budgeting and tightening the belt. It's actually about cultivating a mindset of abundance and helping you to feel abundant. And so it's important to have that dedicated fun money that you spend and enjoy spending, knowing that it's okay. Like I've separated and protected my fun money from my bills money and from my business's money, and everything's being taken care of. And so separating things and just getting clarity is one of the biggest first steps. And then just getting into a little rhythm of, especially if you've got irregular cash flow, of regularly, just distributing that income and making sure the tax money's put aside as you go, of tracking when you've got a shortfall and then making sure you pay it back to yourself or your tax account or whoever had to miss out last week, that you then keep, balancing everything again. Because what a lot of small business owners tend to do is, it's like from feast to famine. So this week it's caviar for everybody. And then the next week it's, oh, crap, lucky we have a can of baked beans in the back of the pantry. But when you get into a habit of smoothing that cash flow, it balances over time. And so it is really important to track when you have a shortfall, to be very conscious of, okay, didn't quite hit what we want to hit this week. What's missing out? Well, that's going to need to be made up as soon as we possibly can. And that balances everything out. And when I started my finance business, I made a promise to myself, which was one of the best things I ever did. And it was, I would only allow myself to worry about my business performance, finances, based on the last 6 months average.
Okay. Yes.
And that just took me out of that space of, riding the roller coaster, because we have a bit of an income roller coaster. As much as we try to have strategies in place to smooth it, they're still going to be up and down. Let's not also let our emotions run with that, because then we go into an unconscious space of fear and we make really bad decisions, and that makes everything worse.
Yes. And then you start, kicking yourself and thinking, how did I get into this situation? And then you're not actually helping yourself. So thank you for that. And we're going to put in the show notes your website and connections with all these different ways that people can connect with you and learn more about how you can help them. You've helped clients retire partners, which, I hear quite often, with, being a woman in business for all these decades. I hear that more and more now. They'd really love to retire their partner, which if you're able to do, and the partner's wanting to, to work with you like that, that's fantastic. Pay off mortgages and fall back in love with their businesses. Can you share a success story that particularly resonates with you, and what lessons hospitality business owners can draw from that experience?
Okay, so one of my favorite success stories, because it's just a little bit left of field, is, I think I mentioned before, I work with a lady who's a property developer. And when she first got into property development, she did the standard, I just want to do, a little bit of a fixer-upper or a little bit of a small development, 1 or 2 a year, and replace my income. So, and she wanted to replace her income, which was under 6 figures at the time. And we started working together and, applying the core values work and just shifting her mindset around her business so that she actually started seeing it as a business. And, fast forward now several years, what I really love about her journey is, yes, we worked on systems. Yes, we worked on her money systems and her business systems and her mindset overall. But what she has completely embraced and is like evangelical about now is that it's actually all about her sense of alignment, her sense of feeling good, being tapped into the joy of what she does and what she's created. And the more she nurtures that and the more stable that is, the better everything flows. The more the deals just come in, problems sort themselves out, the more money she makes. So now she's, turning over a few mil a year, and her partner's retired, which is both good and bad. Sometimes she says, I wish I could just send him back to work now, get him out of my hair. Hope he's not listening to this. So,
I've had a lot of women say that.
Yeah. But it's just, it's changed their whole lifestyle to where now she's completely in charge, and it doesn't matter anymore whether he has to work, whether he can take time off. They can travel, they can do things. She's got a team, and she's got like a really amazing business where she now travels around Australia and shares her strategies and her success stories with other people. And anytime I ask her, what do we need to double down on and get better at? She goes to my sense of alignment. Like, she has completely embraced that the more she feels in alignment and she's showing up really at that, in that high vibrational space, to go totally woo-woo on you, sorry, the just easier everything is and the more joyful everything is.
Yeah. I love that last word, joyful. And that's what we need to be, don't we, Miriam? We work, so, we have this one life and we need joy in it. I think joy is a big part that so many don't have in their life because they're just so busy in the doing. I've absolutely loved this conversation. And before we finish off, is there something about your business or what you do that I haven't asked you that you would like to share with my audience?
I think that probably we've talked about a few of the big messages already that I love to share with people, but I think that the most important message of all that I might leave people with is that you really need to marry the magical with the practical if you want that holistic feeling of success, of both the money in the bank things working really well, and you need to look at your mindset and how the two impact each other, because the way you approach your mindset and the thinking and the belief system will impact the way you do things, and the way you do things impacts your mindset. And when you actually look at marrying the two together so they support each other, your life will change in ways beyond anything you could have imagined. There's incredibly untapped power within us when we step into that space.
And it's just finding the right person, somebody like you that has got that knowledge of business, so that left-hand side of the brain, combining it of the right side just to open that door and for people to see. Miriam, I've loved this conversation. It's been really insightful. Thank you so much for joining me. For sharing your wisdom, your personal journey, and your practical strategies with us. It's been fantastic, from mastering your own personal journey, sharing those habits, but also mastering that money habits and sharing those with us. I encourage you to explore my listeners, Miriam's Freedom and Ease Business Academy. Dive into her magnetic money code. It could be the game changer you need to align your business with your values and reclaim your time. You can also tune in to Miriam's own podcast, Freedom and Ease in Online Business, for even more inspiration and actionable insights. Once again, thank you so much, Miriam, for joining me today. I know my listeners will go away thinking, yes, I need to just stop, bring that joy back in my life, look at what money archetype A is, and what am I going to do to change perhaps my way of thinking now to where I am, to where I'd like to be. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been a total pleasure.
Thank you.